Hello, wanted to do a very short podcast today on something that has been coming around as we go outdoors a lot and tan. I mean, I'm living here in Los Angeles or near Los Angeles, um, in a kind of a sweet spot called Monrovia where you have a little less, you almost have like a microclimate, and there's bears and deer and things that you don't find typically in LA County as much. And there's a nice climate here. There's a cool breeze sometimes. It's not perfect. It's not like the coast, like Santa Monica, but there is some interesting weather patterns that I like about this area. Um, and so, one of the things I want to talk today about is sunburn, sun, in general, tanning, etc. So, um, one thing that there's a lot of myths out there. The first myth is that tanning beds are bad for you. They're not bad for you. The studies that have concluded that tanning increases your risk of skin cancer have used a very selective highlighting procedure to create that argument, meaning that when compared to sun itself, there was like a 0.00 0.05 increase versus a 0.08 normal state, I guess you could say, where the what sun can do to you, and then they compare that to what the tanning bed can do to you. But what they don't tell you is that the chance of infection from the sun itself are very, very low, and like 0.008, and then the chance of the sunbed is 0.025 or whatever, so it's like twice, or twice as much of a chance per se of getting some sort of melanoma, or this skin condition that they're talking about, cancer and things like that, um, skin cancer including melanoma, you could say, as that being one of the bigger, more sensational, like in the media, skin cancers. But and so basically, they're taking like a near non-reality and then multiplying that times 2 or 3 and going, see, this is 3 times worse. But what they're not telling you is that your chances are so low anyway that the whole thing is almost fictitious. So it's like they're playing with the numbers instead of telling you the truth about these things. So they make you sign all these forms and everything. Don't be afraid. Go. The redder you can get in there, the better. And of course, you want, you're not trying to burn yourself in there. And of course, natural sun is also a big key player. So it's not like you want to just use that. But depending on where you live and what you have to do, go for it. Because the thing is, what we have to understand is that sometimes we have to lose. We have to lose. Like, even when you tan outdoors, like, you are stressed. Your body stresses from that tanning. And stuff is lost to a certain degree. There's actually a loss there. But the goal is to get you healthy over the life cycle that you're in. So sometimes you have to take some losses. Think of it more like, when you're trimming roses or grapes or anything, and how that trimming of them makes them grow back stronger. I used to have vines in my backyard in France, and if you don't mess with them, you don't interfere with them, then they become very small and wrinkly. The grapes get worse over time, and so you need to kind of mess with them in order to build that back up, cutting, just like roses and everything else. Like, this is part of how this, like, challenge response system that nature has, and we have in our body too. And so the challenge is that it can even lower your immune system function when you are tanning, and for the next day or two after. Some people even have cold sores and things that come up, and there's these triggers. But over time, you're increasing your vitamin D content throughout the body, and so over time, it's actually helping the body. So, and helping the vitamin D levels and everything else. So what you think you're losing with one thing with skin, you're actually gaining with overall health. And so there's this kind of trade-off there that we have to be careful of. And be careful of not missing out on that. A lot of people are vitamin D deficient, and they wouldn't be if they were, food is a huge player in all this, and probably the biggest player, but this is another way we can overcome that deficiency. So uh, using the skin and using tanning beds. And there's a lot of doctors that were prescribing tanning beds for this effect, and even for in different parts of the world where there's less sun. And so there's a lot of knowledge about this, but we do have to try to do these things right. And so there's no fear. Don't have fear there. Get in the hottest and most intense bed you can find, and the one that reddens you the most. The funny thing is I went to these tanning beds. I usually do stand-up beds because I think they're better, and they get this all the areas of your body, which you don't get laying down. And so I think that's interesting. Um, and and so there's some of the beds that whichever bed gives me the most effect is what I go for. And what I've learned is when I was on the East Coast and then I came to California, they've lowered the possibilities out here in California. Like it takes much longer to get a proper tan in California because of the regulations and legislation. And it's not just a conspiracy. I mean, there's magazines in the tanning salon itself that talk about the lobbying and all the things that they're trying to do to get tanning to be, because tanning is constantly under attack. And my belief is it's under attack because it's creating this vitamin for people, and they don't want people to have that choice. That may sound too polarizing for some people, so I could accept that maybe they just, they're just being extra cautious. If you want to look at it that way, go ahead. But whatever they're doing, it's if you're not intelligent, you're losing this vitamin possibility, especially in climates that don't have as much sun and everything else. But even, we have to be able to keep up with the needs of the body, especially in ever increasing toxic environments. The more an environment has toxins in it, the more we need, the vitamin D, the extra vitamin D, the liver, and the foods that give us a little extra. Not just we survive, but we get buildup material. And iodine, we need more of that through milk and those products, and the butter from the right types of butter, the right types of soil, these standalone tastes that don't just taste like a blank fat. And so, this, and through raw milk, of course. But so iodine will need more of that. The more that there's intoxication in the environment, the more in trouble we are, the more we need these things, not the less. So we try to find how to increase them. So another myth that I want to shatter here is that peeling is bad. Now, of course, if you're just burning yourself all to death and, like lobster, and you can't feel, I mean, that's going to let you know it's not good anyway, because you're going to be feeling like, crap for 3 days and not even touching anything. And so that is an obvious marker that you're not doing something right. But when you go out and tan and you get red like a little lobster sometimes, but it doesn't burn, or even if it does, but you're over time building up that tan. Now the goal, yes, you could say it's not to burn, but sometimes you do peel, and that's okay. That's what I'm saying. Is a lot of people won't tell you that there's a myth about peeling, that peeling is bad. I've went through all sorts of different types of detoxes, including niacin, B3 full flush therapy, and you see the skin peel up a lot when you do these detoxes. When you do like 3 grams a day, as was done in the 50s on thousands and thousands of people. But when you do these things right, you'll notice the skin starts peeling. It's not because you got sun. There's like skin, like your head's peeling, your eyebrow, like all these different areas are peeling. So you could say, oh, it's dry skin, it's this, that, and the other. And there can be some truth to that, like whatever you're using on your head, and shampoos and things like that. So, but there's also a natural flaking off as part of how the body detoxifies itself and gets rid of these things that make it from the body, into the body, even into the liver and the blood system, and then they're pushed out also through the lungs, they're pushed out also through the skin. The body has many ways to get rid of things, and so pushing this stuff out often will have a peeling. And so the peeling is not a bad thing. People say, oh, avoid peeling at all costs, that's the worst. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, it's okay to have the peeling. This is part of a detox process. Now, the goal is not to burn and just completely burn yourself, because that's going to bring its own pain and its own consequence. But underneath that level, there's a lot of play that we can use there, and just keep trying to get in the sun. Now, yes, maybe you could say I could have kept my skin much more white and perfect, or whatever the color tone you're looking for. If it's, I have black friends in Chicago. They're like, I've been here 20 years. I'm looking white now because of this. So, that they may want to get, whatever level of tan they like to get. So everybody has their own needs and style. But what I'm saying is this not doing it in such a vitamin D deficient world is, I find, unintelligent. And there's been a lot of people who've undone the tanning bed lie, that statistic that's written on them, and they've undone it. I think Dr. Mercola talked a lot about that and the truth about that. So we just have to sift through all this stuff and find the vitamins we need. Of course, herring and other foods, which people don't eat very often, would be like a #1 source for vitamin D, but cod liver oil, fermented brands, and things like that. Well, there's only one fermented brand, but whatever. And so these things are important too. In the food supply, of course, is going to be the best. I mean, I get a lot of imported pork too because I find it has more of that in it. Whereas the local pork seems to have a different game thing going on. And they cheat so much, you never know if it's local or imported. They're always trying to play with you. But it's much harder to find the imported stuff. And I usually go to like Russian or Polish or Middle Eastern or Armenian or even sometimes Asian. Not for pork, really, but I go there for some other things. But there's, I found some interesting chickens there that were actually exceptionally allowed in America with their feet and head and then not soy fed and all this stuff. They were coming from Canada, but they were these silky chickens, which were a different type of chicken, but they were allowed in America because they were a Buddhist exception, and it's written on there. So I was like, okay, Buddhist exception, that sounds interesting. That gets us around the USDA protocols, which are completely corrupt. So we have to do things to get ahead of this. And so anyway, don't worry about your skin in that sense. It's more resilient than that. Yes, it probably can tire your skin over time of trying to vitamin up through this process. And it probably challenges your immune system exactly when you do it. Although a few days later, your immune system is stronger. It's kind of like the sea. You go in, it can make your skin dry out, but then it regenerates as well. And so that's what peeling is. It's a regeneration as well. So there's a regeneration and a detoxification happening at the same time. As long as we're not trying to just like burn everything, we don't need to be afraid of it, nor do we need to be afraid of the hottest sun of the day. We need to get that sun particularly, maybe not as long as you would get, a sun at 5, 6 p.m., but there's a need for that exact sun too, according to the UVA and UVB balance that happens at that peak time in the summer, that straight overhead high noon, kind of feel. There's a better ratio of those UV rays, and so that's been proven as well. So you need that high, and babies too. Everybody needs that most intense sunlight, but different levels of time. Once again, how long you need to be exposed. And no, there's not a need for sunscreens. They destroy all of the hormones in the sunscreens and the nanoparticles, the titanium dioxide, and all these nanoparticles destroy the coral reefs. There's lots of studies about that now showing that these tourist beaches, the coral reefs die off because of all the endocrine disruptors that go into the water. So we should have known because it wasn't healthy for us either. It stops the absorption, it stops the creation of vitamin D while blocking, it blocks the UVB, which creates the vitamin D, which protects the skin, but it allows in the UVA, which can burn the skin. There's a different connection there. Well, hold on, let's get this straight. The window pane that when you're in your car, that blocks the vitamin B, but the A passes through. So you can burn without the protection. So this is dangerous, and there's some people who say that it's one of the leading causes of skin cancer is not, and melanoma is not what we think. More sun or intense sun or whatever. What they're finding out is it's sun coming through window panes is one of the key factors according to Dr. Mercola. The sun, the lack of vitamin D not only through tanning but also through the food supply, and then the panic sown around the whole melanoma crisis where we start they start diagnosing more and more just because there's a media frenzy around a certain term, and then people misdiagnose things and it becomes a scare factor, and then there's way more cases, and then doctors realize that there was kind of a mistake that was made there, that they kind of walked into the media's trap too. This happens a lot in medicine. And so getting back to sober statistics and what's really happening, we start to realize that these factors play a key role in skin cancer more than the sun itself. So we're trying to attack, the sun, which is already kind of strange. But anyway, I guess we attack the sun through cholesterol already, since cholesterol is basically liquid sunshine to some degree. The yellow egg yolk. And so as we attack that inner sun, that food sun, it doesn't surprise me, we also attack the outer sun. So we've got everything, and we're attacking the egg, by the way, which is just also crazy, that the reference of protein, on the earth, basically. So, and the best protein you can find, especially if it's not soy fed. And raised outdoors. So anyway, all of these things put together, to help you understand how to get and avoid these things. You don't need sunscreen. Sunscreen does block the production of vitamin D in the skin. It also blocks the A. So, but then you just, you're not getting the benefits of the sun. And so that's ridiculous. And then you're also harming the environment in the process. And then on top of that, just wear like a light linen shirt, very thin, and straw hat, and some sunglasses, and you'll be fine. And even some long sleeved linen pants, something that's just comfortable on the beach, and then roll things up, sleeves or the bottoms or whatever, and you just play with it. And you can get yourself from not overexposing through that method, or not have to use creams or anything else. For children, you could say, well, it's harder to control them. So for children, you can also put those same type of clothing on them, and they can wear those type of hats too. There's types for kids, and so it can all be done. So anyway, hopefully that can be of help to someone, so you don't have this fear of the skin and everything else. I also recommend using transdermal magnesium, topical magnesium, in a general way to help increase magnesium levels throughout the body, because this is going to help the body to work properly. There's over 800 functions involved with magnesium, from the metabolism, the exchange, cellular exchange, ionic transfer. You have chelation of toxins, uptake, offloading of everything from oxygen in the hemoglobin on down to mineral ionophore kind of transfer of membranes. You're allowing that to get in the cell. And so a calcium channel blocker, natural calcium channel blocker, hypotensive, and that's the positive side. If you have the hypertension, magnesium helps dilate, open things back up again, and let things move freely. So very powerful stuff to heal the nervous system, but also for sleep and for cramps and pains and everything else. So this I always give in conjunction, because this is like the skin's food. It's one of the number one things you can feed the skin. And vitamin D2 coming through, there's oils and things like that. But in general, the vitamin D is going to come through food and the sun. But so that's how the sun produces that vitamin D, through the skin. And the magnesium is also through the skin. This is why we go bathing, and this is what the Greek and Roman bath culture was based on. Their culture centered around magnesia. So we're getting back to understanding why and how important this magnesium through the skin is such a key to being able to overcome deficiencies. Even if they didn't have as polluted of a soil or as acidic as of a soil as we do now, they still knew that they had to set up all these, bath, spa culture, Roman, Greek, all throughout Europe. They set these up. I mean, they're here too in California, hot springs, and they're everywhere. So we've just lost this tradition. So we bring it back for $25 for a bottle for 2 months, $3 a week, only in glass bottles. Don't get the fake stuff. All these other brands out there, only get the hardest tradition. Yes, it's our brand, but then again, we're the only people doing certified Zechstein with the logo coming from the actual source in Vindam. In Holland, which most people are using the name Zechstein abusively, and it has no origin, no European origin. It's very easy to trace these movements because there's only one origin, so you can just call the engineers over there at Zechstein and they'll tell you. But a lot of people don't know that, they don't do that. So true Zechstein, which means it's a natural state magnesium, so it hasn't been refined or changed or solvent extracted or anything else, and so it's able to pull things out of the body with a much more sticky capacity. It's not surrounded by other things, the molecule, one could say. So this is the stuff you want, and then we also do it in glass, so there's no endocrine disruptors. So it's win-win, $3 a week. Come check us out at theheartoftradition.com.